A proud father dressed in uniform sat quietly among the crowd, his heart racing as he prepared to watch his son cross the stage, a moment he had dreamed about for years. But before the celebration could even begin, two guards locked eyes on him, stepping closer with cold authority. In front of families and cameras, they demanded he leave. Whispers rippled through the auditorium, confusion spreading like wildfire. Why would they single out a decorated Marine on his own son's graduation day? And what happened next would silence the entire room. Also, please subscribe the channel, it's free and it will help me a lot. For Sergeant Marcus Hayes, this day was supposed to be a victory of a different kind. After years of service, deployments and sacrifices, he finally had the chance to sit back, not as a soldier but as a father. His son was graduating, stepping into a new chapter, and Marcus wanted nothing more than to be there, proud and visible as his boy's name was called. The auditorium buzzed with excitement. Families clutching cameras, children waving programs, the air heavy with pride and anticipation. Marcus found his seat quietly, his crisp uniform a silent reminder of battles fought and honor earned. To most, he was just another parent in the crowd. But for some, that uniform carried a weight they misunderstood, or chose not to respect. As the ceremony unfolded, eyes lingered on him longer than they should have. A few whispers, a glance too sharp, a presence that seemed unwelcome in a place of celebration. He didn't notice at first. His focus was on his son. Yet, even in moments of joy, prejudice has a way of finding its target. When it did, the celebration he had dreamed of was about to take a turn no one expected. Marcus sat tall in his seat, hands folded tightly on his lap, trying to steady his heartbeat as his son's row edged closer to the stage. He wanted to remember every second. The tassel swinging on the graduation cap, the proud smile, the moment a father's sacrifices felt seen. Yet, from the corner of his eye, movement disrupted the calm. Two uniformed guards stepped into the aisle, their eyes fixed on him like he was an intruder rather than a guest. At first, he thought it was coincidence. Maybe they were scanning the crowd, making routine rounds. But the way their shoulders squared, the way their gaze didn't drift, told a different story. They weren't looking for trouble, they were looking at him. One guard leaned toward the other, whispering something Marcus couldn't hear. Seconds later, both advanced. The atmosphere shifted. Parents nearby straightened in their seats, curiosity mixing with unease. Marcus felt it too, the heavy silence pressing in as the guards stopped directly at his row. They motioned for him to stand. Confusion flooded his mind. Why him and why now? His heart pounded as his son's class lined up to approach the stage. Every instinct told him to stay seated, but authority was bearing down. Slowly he rose, his uniform catching the light. Gasps stirred in the crowd. To anyone watching, the sight of decorated medals should have demanded respect. But to the guards, it seemed to spark only suspicion. Whispers spread faster now. Some faces showed recognition, others disbelief. A veteran, a Marine, being ordered out during his own child's graduation? Still, the guards pressed forward, their posture sharp, their presence intimidating. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but the words died before forming. Years of discipline told him to remain calm. Yet beneath his composure, the sting of injustice burned hot. The guards gestured toward the exit, firm and unyielding. Every step Marcus took down that aisle felt like a punishment, not for something he had done, but for something he represented. The weight of countless moments, where skin color overshadowed honor, where bias drowned out dignity, pressed on his chest with every glance that followed him. The ceremony carried on, but the tension was unshakable. Parents whispered. Students shifted nervously. His son's eyes scanned the crowd, confusion flickering when he couldn't spot the father who had promised to be there. And Marcus, pulled farther from the seat he had rightfully earned, felt the bitter truth. This day was no longer about celebration. It had become another test of endurance, another silent battle against a system that always seemed ready to push him aside. But what neither the guards nor anyone else in that auditorium expected was what came next. The air inside the auditorium grew heavier with each step Marcus was forced to take. His boots echoed against the polished floor, each sound magnified by the silence pressing down on the room. Parents watched in disbelief, students froze mid-smile, and somewhere in the crowd, his son's face stiffened with shock. A Marine, decorated, disciplined, and devoted, was being marched out like a criminal on the very day he came to honor his child. Humiliation wrapped around him like chains. For a man who had survived war zones, this felt sharper, crueler. Not bullets, not bombs, just the cold judgment of his own countrymen. He kept his chin high, but inside the injustice cut deep. He had worn this uniform for years to protect freedoms, and now, wearing it seemed to strip him of his own. The guards reached for his arm, ready to usher him out, when a ripple surged through the back rows. 6 men stood simultaneously, their presence undeniable. Broad shoulders, straight backs, sharp eyes, they carried themselves with the kind of weight only elite warriors could. Navy SEALs. And they weren't just standing, they were moving forward. The crowd stirred. Whispers turned to gasps as the SEALs closed the gap, forming a wall between Marcus and the guards. Their silence was louder than any shout, their stance radiating unshakable authority. In that moment, the power in the room shifted. The guards faltered, hesitation flashing across their faces. They had expected obedience, not resistance. And certainly not this. 6 of America's most formidable soldiers standing in solidarity with a black Marine who had been treated as less than. The audience held its breath. Marcus, standing tall despite the humiliation, locked eyes with his son across the auditorium. Pride flickered in the boy's expression, even through the confusion. And then, without a single word spoken, the room felt completely still, as if waiting for history to decide what would happen next. The guards froze, their authority stripped away in an instant. The SEALs didn't need to raise their voices, their very presence demanded respect. Step by step, Marcus was guided back to his seat, not by force but by solidarity. The crowd, once silent, now erupted into quiet applause, a ripple of support that grew louder as people realized what they were witnessing. His son spotted him again in the audience, and the pride on his face returned. A father was where he belonged, front and center, honoring his child. Yet even in that victory the sting remained. Marcus had served his country with loyalty, but prejudice had tried to erase his dignity in a single moment. The SEALs had stood up, but the truth was clear. Not everyone has protectors willing to intervene. Not every father, mother, or child subjected to racism has witnesses ready to shift the balance of power. That graduation ended not just with diplomas and handshakes, but with a silent reminder etched into every heart in that auditorium, that injustice can appear anywhere, even in moments meant for joy. And when it does, silence is complicity. Marcus's story is not just about one Marine. It's about countless lives where uniforms, titles, and accomplishments cannot shield against prejudice. It's about a truth too many live every day. Respect isn't always given, even when it has been earned 100 times over. So the question remains, when injustice walks into the room, will we look away or will we rise to silence it?